not sell it then either. But I did go home and start turning over every piece of iron on this place, and I found things I had walked past for 30 years.
My name is Burl Sizemore, fifth generation on this ground in eastern Kentucky, in a house my grandfather put up in 1931.
Now set that down a minute. Every barn in these mountains has iron in it, under the bench, in a crate by the door, hanging on a nail where somebody hung it in 1968, and nobody has touched it since. Out in the weeds behind the smokehouse where it went when the handle got too rusty to look at. People walk past that iron for 40 years. Then somebody dies, and it goes in a trailer to the scrapyard by the pound.
10 things, and I am going to tell you the truth up front, because I am too old to sell you a story.
9 out of 10 pieces of iron in your barn are worth $30 or $40 to a stranger. That is good iron. Clean it and cook with it. Do not sell it. But the 10th one is not $30. And the 10th one is the one that ends up in the scrap trailer because it does not look like anything.
Number 6 is a mark that tells you your pan was made before 1890, and it takes 2 seconds to see once somebody shows you.
Number 3 is the one that goes for 4 figures when it is right, and I have held exactly 2 in my life. And number 10 is not a pan at all. It is the thing that decides whether any of the other 9 matter, and if you skip it, you can waste a whole afternoon getting excited about junk. Go get whatever piece is closest to you and turn it upside down.
We start at the bottom because the bottom is where iron tells the truth. The top just tells you how hard somebody scrubbed.
The cooking surface tells you the century before the name does. Run your fingers across the inside of the pan, the part the food sits on. Do not look at it. Rust and old grease will lie to your eye. Feel underneath all that. If it is smooth, and I mean smooth like a creek stone, that pan was machined. After it came out of the sand, somebody put it on a lathe and cut that surface flat and slick. Every foundry worth anything did that, and they did it right up until about the middle of the last century. If it feels pebbled and grainy, like fine sandpaper under your fingertips, that is the raw sand cast surface, straight out of the mold, never touched. That is how nearly all of them have been made since about the 1960s. That one thing tells you which side of 1960 you are standing on before you find a single letter of a name.
And it is not just a dating trick, it is why the old ones cook better, and why people pay for them.
Grease lays down flat on a machine's surface and builds up slick over the years. On a rough surface, it feels the low spots, and the high spots stay proud, and food catches on those high spots. You can season a rough pan for 20 years, and it will never get where a machined one starts. Pick it up and be surprised at how light it is. This one fools everybody, because we all assume old means heavy, and heavy means good. Old iron is thinner. Those foundries had it down to a trade, and they poured a wall about as thick as it needed to be, and not one hair thicker, because iron costs money and thin iron heats faster and more even. A 10-inch skillet from the 1930s will feel light in your hand next to a new one, the same size across. New ones are thicker because thick is cheaper to cast. Thick metal is forgiving in the mold. You can pour it fast and pull it out, and it comes out whole. Thin metal is not forgiving, and casting it well took men who knew what they were doing.
So if you lift a big skillet and your arm says, "That is lighter than it ought to be," that is a good sign, not proof.
But a good sign, and it costs you nothing to notice. The spider. This is the one. This is the 4-figure pan, and it is the reason I am standing in a barn talking to a camera about skillets. For a short stretch in the 1890s, the foundry up in Erie, Pennsylvania, put a logo on the bottom of some of its pans that was a spider sitting in the middle of its web, not a word. A picture. Griswold used it a little while and then quit and went to lettering. Because they quit early, there is not much of it out there. A real one, sound, no crack in it, is not a $40 pan. It is a pan that people drive across 2 states to look at. I have held 2 in my life.
One belonged to a woman up the creek from me who was using it to prop her screen door open in the summer.
She had no idea. The other one came out of a box lot at an auction in Rockcastle County with a broken box fan and a coffee can of bolts in it, and the whole box went for $11. So turn the pan over. If what is on the bottom is a picture instead of a word, stop what you're doing and pay attention. And I will say the other half of that too, because it is only fair. There are reproductions. There are pans made to look old. If yours has a picture on the bottom, that is the day you take it to somebody who handles this iron for a living before you get your hopes up or before you sell it to the first man who offers. The name and where the name is from. Most pans have a word cast into the bottom, and that word is doing more work than people think. Griswold, out of Erie, Pennsylvania. Wagner, out of Sydney, Ohio. Those two are the ones everybody has heard of, and they earned it.
They made a great deal of iron, and they made it well, and there is enough of it left that you can still find it.
Then there are the ones nobody talks about. Birmingham Stove and Range, Sydney Hollow Ware, Lodge from Tennessee, still going. Some of those are worth more than a common Griswold for the plain reason that less of it survived. Write down what the bottom says. Every word, every number, including things that look like nonsense because the little numbers are often the mold number and they matter to the people who buy this iron. And do not go by looks. 2 skillets can sit side by side on my bench looking like twins and be 40 years and $150 apart. The difference will be 3 letters cast into the bottom. The number is not the size. It is the stove. There is a number on most old skillets.
3, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12. Everybody assumes it is inches across. It is not. That number came off the wood-cook stove.
The top of a wood stove had round eyes in it, lids you lifted with a handle, and they came in sizes. You bought a number 8 skillet because you had a number 8 eye in your stove, and you wanted the pan to drop down in there and take the fire directly. My grandmother's stove had 4 eyes, and she had a pan for 3 of them. When everybody quit cooking on wood, that number stopped meaning anything at all, and the foundries kept casting it anyway because that is what people asked for. Here is the part that matters to your pocket. 8, 10, and 12 were everywhere, because that is what a family actually cooked with, 3 meals a day for 80 years. 1, 2, 13, and 14 are not. Almost nobody needed a pan that small or that big, so almost nobody bought one, so almost none got made. If you turn a pan over and the number is one you do not usually see, that deserves a hard look, even if the name on it is the most common name there is. The gate mark. That is before 1890. This is the one hardly anybody knows, and it is the easiest thing on this whole list to spot once you have seen one. Look at the outside of the bottom, right across the middle.
Is there a raised line or a rough ridge or what looks like a seam somebody forgot to grind off? Runs clean across, side to side.
That is a gate mark. That is where the molten iron ran into the sand mold, and when they knocked the pan out, they broke that channel off and left the scar. Foundries poured that way until roughly 1890, and then the process changed, and the gate mark went away and never came back. So a gate mark is not a hint. It is a date. It puts your pan in the 1800s, and it does it with no name, no number, and nothing you have to go look up. And here's the cruel part. Gate-marked pans very often have no maker's name on them at all, because a lot of them were made before foundries bothered to sign their work. So people turn one over, see a blank, rusty bottom with a scar across it, and set it in the scrap pile. That is exactly backwards. The blank bottom with the scar is the old one.
The heat ring, and what it is telling you. Turn it over again and look at the outer edge of the bottom.
Is there a raised ring running around it, standing up maybe as thick as a dime, like a low rim? That is a heat ring. It was cast on so the pan would sit level down in a stove eye and trap a pocket of heat under the bottom instead of letting it run out the sides. When kitchens went to gas and then electric, that ring did nothing but cost iron, so the foundries quit putting it on. Most pans made after about 1940 do not have one. So a heat ring is another clock. Not as exact as the gate mark, but it puts you on the early side of the last century. And these things stack. A machined surface, a heat ring, and an odd number on the same pan is 3 clocks agreeing with each other. The lid is worth more than the pan. There is a deep skillet in a lot of these barns that nobody thinks twice about. About as deep as your hand is, wide, straight sides instead of sloped, made so you could fry a whole chicken without grease going all over the stove. A chicken fryer. The pan by itself is common enough, but it came with a lid, and lids have been getting dropped on stone floors and concrete for 100 years. The The pan survived every one of those falls.
The lid did not. If you find a chicken fryer with its own lid still on it, matched, that is not two pieces of iron.
That is a set, and a set is worth several times what those two pieces would bring apart from each other. Same thing with the little iron trivets that sat down inside a Dutch oven to hold a roast up out of the drippings. Nobody kept track of those. They got used for a doorstop or thrown in a bucket. If you have got one, you have the half that is hard to find. So before you decide what a piece is, go look for its other half. Check the shelf above it. Check the bottom of the crate. The odd shapes are the ones nobody wanted and nobody kept. Not everything out there is a skillet, and the ones that are not are worth slowing down for.
Corn stick pans, cast in a row of little ears of corn, so the cornbread came out looking like corn.
There are wedge pans, divided like a pie into 8. Muffin pans with the cups cast right in. Waffle irons with a ball hinge, so the whole thing could be flipped over on the stove eye without opening it. Dutch ovens with 3 legs cast onto the bottom, made to stand right down in the coals of a fire. 2 things make those interesting. They were made in far smaller numbers because they were not everyday iron. And they broke more because a thin casting with a lot of shape in it is fragile compared to a plain round skillet. A waffle iron with both halves and the base still together is uncommon. A 3-legged camp oven with all 3 legs sound and no crack where they join is uncommon. Most of what is left out there is missing something. Look in the back of the barn for the shapes that are not round. That is where the odd iron went, because nobody was cooking with it and nobody knew what else to do with it. And 10 decides whether the other 9 mean anything. None of what I just told you matters if the iron is broken. Broken iron is worth what scrap iron is worth, and not 1 cent more, no matter whose name is cast into the bottom of it. So, before you let yourself get excited, do 3 things. Hold the pan up by the handle with 1 finger hanging free, nothing else touching it. Tap the rim with a knuckle.
A sound pan rings and the note hangs there for a second. A cracked pan gives you a dull thud and dies immediately.
Your ear will know the difference the first time you hear both, and you will never need to be told again. Then set it on something you know is flat. A table saw top, a piece of glass, a good level counter, pressed down on one edge. If it rocks or if it spins, the pan is warped. Iron warps when somebody heats it dry and then puts cold water in it, and a warped pan will never sit right on a flat stove again. Then get up close and look hard at 2 places. Where the handle joins the body and around the inside of the bottom corner, that is where cracks start. A hairline crack under 60 years of rust is easy to miss, and it is a miserable feeling to spend an evening cleaning something up and find you cleaned up junk. And let me clear one thing up while I'm here, because it stops people cold. Rust is not damage. Rust is surface. It comes off with time and effort, and the iron under it is generally fine. What you actually worry about is pitting, when the rust has been left long enough to eat pockets down into the metal and the surface looks like the face of the moon. Pitting does not come out. Pitting is gone metal.
Now let me tell you the part these videos never tell you, because it is the part I would want somebody to tell me.
That skillet I would not sell for $2. It hangs in my barn on a nail through the handle hole. It has a gate mark across the bottom, no name on it anywhere, and it is the pan my grandmother made cornbread in every Sunday of my childhood. I have been offered money for it 3 separate times. I've also used it something like 400 times since the morning that man set it down on my yard sale table. The $400 was real money. So was every one of those 400 suppers. If you go out to that barn tonight and turn everything over, I hope you find a spider on the bottom of something. It happens. It happened to me twice, and neither time was I looking. But what you're far more likely to find is a plain, sound, smooth-bottomed pan, no name on it, worth about $35 to a stranger. That will outlast you and your children if you keep it dry and keep a little grease on it.
And on what any of it is truly worth in dollars, do not take my number and do not take anybody else's either. Prices move around.
Go look up what pieces like yours have actually sold for. Completed sales, not what somebody is asking. Asking is a wish. Sold is a fact. If nobody ever showed you how to read the bottom of a pan, that is not your fault, friend. It quit being handed down about the same time everybody quit cooking on wood. But it takes 10 minutes to learn. The iron is still out there in barns all over this country, and most of it is still sitting where somebody set it down, waiting on a person who will turn it over. Thank you for sitting with me.